Very seldom does a game make one challenge their preconceived notions about the world or question the value of their own humanity. There's a rather unassuming character in Bloodborne with the power to do just that. Welcome to another episode of Fear the Old Lore. This time we'll examine one of my favorite characters, commonly referred to as the Suspicious Beggar, and how one's humanity is valued in a game like Bloodborne. In the Forbidden Woods, there's an easily missable NPC in the dark windmill with the patrolling snake parasite. Venturing out of a window near the top floor leads to an area that can be used to access the roof where the Suspicious Beggar can be found before the Red Moon is revealed. He will be hunched over a family of dead Yarnamites, and is caught literally red-handed consuming the flesh of a child. Interacting with him will startle him and cause him to bark in surprise.
Whoa!
After he composes himself, he'll ask the hunter if they know of any safe havens he could go to. He has ulterior motives in asking for a safe place, and his Japanese dialogue does a better job hinting towards his true goal. Instead of merely asking for shelter, he asks if the hunter knows of an area where everyone is evacuated to. It's a small difference, but the juxtaposition of the two highlights that while the beggar is looking for a safe place, he isn't concerned about safety. He wants to know where he can find more people to consume. Like the other NPCs, we can choose to send the beggar to a hidden chapel or Yosefka's clinic. While he doesn't have a traditional questline, sending him to the clinic prematurely ends it, as he'll be turned into a celestial emissary. If the beggar is sent to the chapel, he won't go inside like the other NPCs. Instead, he'll loiter outside, a subtle hint that his true nature differs from the others who have taken shelter in its beast-repelling incense.
Ah, hello again. I owe this to you. It's a wonderful place. They even let beggars like myself in. What's better, we keep our distance. Don't step on anyone's toes, right? The way proper Yarnamites ought to live.
Normally, one wouldn't celebrate their townsfolk and neighbors being cold and distant, yet the beggar rejoices because he knows he can move freely amongst them and do as he pleases. If the hunter leaves the chapel, kills the boss and returns, an NPC will be missing with a pool of blood coating where they once were. Return to the beggar and he'll say the following.
Oh, you again. Perfect timing. I've got some more. See? Oh my. You just can't get enough. Oh no, I understand. I'm the very same. Oh, hello again. I really do owe you a terrible lot. Finding me such a nice place to live.
You may have noticed a few discrepancies in the portions of his dialogue that have been on screen. I'm unsure why there's such a difference between the two, but my guess would be that the localizers weren't given enough information about the beggar, so they might not have known that he kills other NPCs or what he was hinting towards. Or maybe they wanted to play it more straight in English, just to magnify a sense of betrayal. There's pros and cons to both approaches, but I tend to enjoy the subtle foreshadowing that's present in the Japanese. By guiding the beggar to an easy place where everyone's evacuated to, only for NPCs to start dying, it's abundantly clear that the red-handed beggar is responsible for their deaths. He offers the hunter beast blood pellets as reward, and will kill an NPC each time a boss is defeated. If he manages to kill 2 NPCs, he'll have an additional line of dialogue if you reload the area.
Oh, hi. I'm afraid I don't have any more. Yeah, it's all sold out. Sorry, chum. But you know, I'll try and get some more soon. But you know, it ain't easy, right?
At this point, the beggar assumes the hunter is a witting participant in the killing of the NPCs. Though it's still vague, it's implied a little more strongly in his Japanese lines, which are closer to, "But well, if I get the chance, I can get more." You understand too, don't you? His final line also appears as one of the preset phrases in the notebook, though its translation was handled inconsistently. Instead of, "You know it ain't easy, right?" it's listed in the notebook as, "You're in the know, right?" For those in the know, when the Suspicious Beggar is attacked, he'll transform into an abhorrent beast. However, unlike every other beast in the game, the beggar retains his ability to speak, and he'll condemn the hunter for their actions during the fight.
Have you got a screw loose? Or is it your animal intuition? You hunters have got more blood on your hands.
Interestingly enough, his dialogue will change if the players let him kill multiple NPCs.
Oh, you are a sick puppy. You drink the blood of half the town, and now this. And you talk of beasts. You hunters are the real killers.
I really like the Suspicious Beggar's dialogue throughout the fight because he's one of the very few characters in any Soulsborne title that will directly criticize the player for their actions. Of course, it's easy to dismiss what he says since he kills other NPCs, and we literally find him feasting on the corpse of a child, but that doesn't excuse the hunter's actions either.
Die! Die! Hunters are killers, nothing less! You call me a beast? A beast? What would you know? I didn't ask for this.
Does the beggar's claims of hunters being mere killers have any weight? If we consider Jura is right in saying that the beasts of Old Yharnam are people, then a hunter that slays beasts really may seem like a killer to someone like Jura or the Suspicious Beggar. After all, when the beggar dies, he says,
Rancid beasts, every last one of us.
If all men are beasts and if hunters are the true killers, it raises some pretty fundamental questions of what separates the beggar from the hunter and man from beast. Hunters are obviously connected to the hunter's dream, and that shouldn't be overlooked, but beyond that, the hunter seems to kill indiscriminately, whereas the beggar at least seems to kill out of a desire for sustenance. Arguments can be made that a hunter also hunts for sustenance, and that the blood echoes they inherit while out in the hunt can be used to augment their strength. One issue this raises is what authority do the hunter and beggar have for slaughtering their prey? While the hunter might be divinely ordained to reap the blood echoes or souls of the dead and return them to the hunter's dream, they feasibly also have the choice to not participate in the hunt and the events ongoing within Yharnam. Jura's point about the beasts being no harm to those up above ties into this, as the beasts do not attack each other, and thus the need to kill the beasts prowling the streets is greatly exaggerated. The hunter can simply leave them be, though it wouldn't advance their goal of finding pale blood to transcend the hunt or stopping the source of the spreading scourge of beasts. It isn't necessary to kill every beast to end the hunt, so perhaps the Suspicious Beggar is justified in calling the hunter a killer and nothing more. On the other hand, if all men are beasts, it's possible to construe the Suspicious Beggar as a kind of impure cannibal in eating the flesh of man. But if the note in the lecture hall is right in that evolution without courage will be the downfall of our race, then would it imply it's inherently flawed trying to judge the inhuman beggar using the morals of man? With the beggar transforming into a beast, one could argue he's evolved beyond humanity, and his choosing to consume the flesh of man is no different than people choosing to eat animals. It's human nature to protect each other from predators, which puts the hunter at odds with the beggar, but is it truly the hunter's role to protect humanity? If the hunter's goal is to seek pale blood to transcend the hunt, or halt the source of the spreading scourge of beasts so that they can be freed from the hunter's dream, then maybe not. It could just be a coincidence that the people of Yharnam will benefit from the hunter's actions, but how much of them are done altruistically? How much was out of selfishness? Each player has the power to decide how to end their cycle of the hunt, yet it's guaranteed to continue in at least 2 of the 3 endings. It isn't necessarily the hunter's responsibility to break the cycle, but many would argue having the power to enact change carries a moral responsibility to do so. Passing that responsibility on to others doesn't guarantee they'll make righteous or benevolent choices, and leaving the system as it is can allow it to continue to oppress those who are bound to it. Should the player muster the courage to evolve into a Great One, we come back to the issue of no longer being bound by the limits or morality of man. If ending the cycle of the hunt was done altruistically, perhaps the hunter's ascension into a Great One means they'll become a benevolent force that will look over mankind.
Oh, good hunter.
The Childhood's Beginning trophy states, "You became an infant Great One, lifting humanity into its next childhood." There's a small difference in the Japanese text in that it specifies it's the evolution of man that has entered its next infancy. What's interesting about this is that it could be contrasting the evolution of man with the rest of mankind, and leaves more room open for interpretation that the hunter's evolution into a Great One is little different than that of the moon presences, and that the cycle of the hunt may be inevitable. I think in a game like Bloodborne that's heavily inspired by cosmic horror and romantic literature, when characters like the Suspicious Beggar and the Imposter Doctor devalue human life, it's meant to make the player question the attachment to their own humanity. With this perspective in mind, I think it's easier to understand what Miyazaki says in his Drained of Blood interview about the imposter Yosefka. That's a character I like a great deal too, but during development I'd say to the team she's one of the heroines of this game and nobody would believe me, which left me a bit crestfallen. That's one of the underlying themes of the game, or you could say that I have a thing for the scholarly investigator character trope. You have Sage Fake and Demon Souls and Master Willem in this game, and the fake Yosefka kinda descends from there. But perhaps because I'm not good at characterization, None of those characters ever seem to get very popular. It makes me feel a little sorry for the fake Yosefka if she follows that same route. There's no question the Doctor's experiments on unwitting and unwilling patients is unethical, but if the Doctor's goal is to have people transcend the beastly idiocy of man, then perhaps turning her patients into celestial emissaries can be considered selfless or for the greater good. This doesn't excuse her actions or absolve her of literal crimes against humanity, but perhaps there can be more sympathy towards characters who seem to have stereotypically evil goals at a first glance. The Suspicious Beggar and the Imposter Doctor are amongst my favorite FromSoft NPCs because they have the power to evoke such thought-provoking questions that extend beyond the game with a minimal amount of dialogue. It's easy to dismiss them as being evil or depraved, so it feels much more impactful to me when a character like the Beggar can question the player's actions and paint us as the moral hypocrites. Thus, we return to one of the fundamental questions at the root of Bloodborne. If, in order to transcend humanity, it meant you had to leave your humanity behind, would you do it? Thank you for watching this video. The themes examined in this video are a bit different than the others I've explored so far, so if you want to see more content like this in the future, please let me know in the comments below, and please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. Fear the Old Lore.